If you're a military family and you are on orders to PCS to Davis-Monthan here in Tucson, then I'm sure one of the biggest decisions that is on your mind is going to be where are you going to live? Are you going to live on base? Are you going to live off base? What part of town? Are you going to rent for a little bit, rent forever? What if the rents are crazy, which I hear they are? And what are the pros and cons of all of them? If you're like me and my family, then there are a number of things that are important when it comes to deciding whether you're going to live on base or off base, and then what part of town are you going to live in? What type of home do you want? In this video, I hope to shed some light on our experience living here after 5 years and calling this our forever home, as well as what you can expect, the pros and the cons from different parts of town, living on base versus living off base. I'm Martinez, and I'm a real estate agent here in Tucson, and I service pretty much all of Southern Arizona to include a majority of the families that are military, both PCSing in and out of Tucson. We've been here 5 years now, and my wife has just recently retired from the Air Force, and I am prior Army. Now, much like most of you, if you're watching this, we've had the fortune of traveling the world, experience a ton, and our first experience as homeowners was here in Tucson. 5 years ago, we made the move from Vandenberg Air Force Base in California to Tucson. And one of the biggest decisions and biggest hurdles we had to overcome was buying a home sight unseen. Now, after looking at the housing market for a while and figuring out what type of house you can get for what budget, we found that if you looked in certain parts of town, you can get a lot more house for a lot less money. Now, this was very appealing to us because we were first-time home buyers, and this was the first time we're going to utilize our VA loan. Now, I will say that our experience was strictly with new builds, and we have only lived in new builds. So that process is a bit easier when it comes to making the purchase and really throughout the entire transaction of buying that home, new build versus resale home. Now, that's not a knock on resale homes. They're just two very different experiences, and some of you might be familiar with the differences and some of you may not. Fortunately for us, we had an agent that was working with the builder as well as an agent here that helped guide us through the purchase. And we ultimately ended up buying on the southwest part of town near Casino del Sol, actually a good bit past it. And we also ended up buying a D.R. Horton home. Now, one of the most popular questions is, what are the good builders and what are the bad builders? And I will tell you, I have sold just about every type of new build home here in town, and all the builders are good. Where the differences lie are when the contractors put together the homes, how well they pay attention to the level of detail, and really basic instructions on where things should go. Other knocks you might see on houses are dings, dents, holes, plumbing, electrical, but I like to compare it to buying, let's say, 100 Hondas. You can buy 100 different Honda Civics. 90 of them are going to run perfect, 5 might have minor issues, and 5 might have major issues. And it's the same for homes. I can put families into, we'll call it Meritage homes all day, every day. And of those 10 families, 8 might have no problems, 1 might have a small problem, and number 10, I think I got those numbers wrong, but number 10 might have just a horrific plumbing problem or an electrical problem. But I will tell you, everyone's experiences differ. And for the most part, the builders are great at following up on their warranties and making sure everything is taken care of inside the home. Now, I know I'm going off on a little bit of a new build tangent here, but the point I'm trying to make is when it comes to shopping for homes, there's a lot of factors to take into consideration. Don't be discouraged whether you're looking at new builds and worried about build quality, or you're looking at resale homes and you're going to move into someone's previous home. Here in Arizona, you get a 10-day inspection period, and it is a very thorough process. And that's where you need to get with your agent to make sure that you're taking those days to go through everything, find all the concerns that you have and go over them and address them accordingly. Some of the most important factors for us when we made the move here were commute, schools, neighborhoods, shopping, and really things to do for kids. We knew nothing about Tucson, so one of the biggest mistakes we made was kind of ignoring the commutes and the layout of Tucson. Now, if you're looking at a map, you'll notice that there's really only one freeway that goes through Tucson, and it's from the north to the south. It's the 10 freeway. Now, we do have a small freeway that breaks off from that further south, which is the 19, and that's what takes you from Tucson to Sahuarita to Green Valley and ultimately to the U.S.-Mexico border. With the 10 and the 19 being the only freeways that really only take you from north to south, that means if you're trying to commute from east to west or west to east, you're really stuck with all surface streets and street lights and stop signs, so it can take quite a bit to go from one side of the town to the other. Now, you might consider this a pro or con, but Tucson really only takes you about 45 minutes to an hour to get from one extreme east side to the extreme west side, and that's going from end to end. You're more than likely never going to do that. But where we ended up buying our first house was on the far southwest side of town near Casino del Sol again. And our commute was to Davis-Monthan Air Force Base. At Davis-Monthan is where my wife worked. She was active duty. My kids went to school there. My kids went to daycare there. And my office for real estate was actually on the other side of Davis-Monthan. We quickly found out that most of our day, maybe not most, but it felt like a majority of it was spent in the car, just driving to and from our house, to the base, to the office, and to the stores that we needed to go to. After about 2.5 years of this, we decided that as much as we loved our home, we loved our neighborhood, we loved our neighbors, we loved everything about where we lived, that we decided the commute was enough. Let's find somewhere closer to town or somewhere with easier freeway access. So fast forward, and one Saturday morning, we woke up and decided to go explore. And we had been hearing a lot of rumors and chatter about Vail and the Vail School District. Now, the short of that is the Vail School District is one of the most highly ranked schools in all of the state. It is the number one ranked school district in Southern Arizona. And I believe it's pretty highly ranked nationally as well, but I'm not sure on the national numbers there. Being a military family, we've had our kids in all sorts of schools in all different states and countries. And we've had a pretty good taste of what school systems have to offer. Once we put our kids in the Vail School District and they're all in elementary school, we were pleasantly surprised with what they were learning, the progress at which they were learning, and some of the things they were being introduced to. All that to say, the Vail School District chatter and hype lived up to its name, and we're very happy with this school system and plan on keeping our kids here from elementary school to middle school, all the way to high school. Back to the commute, and one thing that we wanted to have was easy freeway access. Now, even though we live pretty far southeast in Vail, the fact that we have the freeway just a few minutes from us, as well as right next to my kids' school, makes it super easy for us to get anywhere in Tucson if we need to go downtown or go really anywhere. There are a few areas around Tucson that do have good freeway access, but if you're going to live up in the Oro Valley area, or maybe the far east side off of Houghton, or the far northeast, then you can expect street driving, street lights, and stop signs to be an everyday routine for you. Again, this is not to say that Tucson's a terrible place to drive. We're just a family, and especially me, who hates driving and really wants a short commute to anywhere we need to go. If you're a military family looking at Davis-Monthan, then there are going to be a few gates for you to choose from to enter and exit. For those that are looking at the Visitor Center or the Welcome Center, that's going to be your northernmost gate, and that is off Golf Links and Craycroft. There is a gate just to the west of that off Swan, but that has limited hours. To the south of the base, there's another gate that has limited hours as well. And for those that live in the Rita Ranch, Vail, or Corona de Tucson area, or the south side, that's going to be your easiest way to get to base, again, during those limited hours. I know that my wife used the back gate, and I want to say it's called the 29B gate. Don't quote me on that. But it made life a whole lot easier when that was open. She could go to and from the base without having to go all the way around to the front gate. There is one more gate on the east side. I know that has even more limited hours, but if you do live on the east side, that makes for a very easy commute as well. Make sure to look up and contact your sponsor or the Welcome Center to get a good idea of where these gates are and what their hours are. And then you can base your commute from where you live to the base. Now that leads me to my next point. Southern Arizona and Tucson are very well known for their great school districts, and they're home to a number of them. Tucson offers a number of great public schools, private schools, and charter schools. A few years ago, the state of Arizona stopped doing their Arizona school rankings because of the pandemic, and for the 2021-2022 school year, they implemented the state-ranked school system. Now, these schools are given letter grades just like you would see on a report card, A through F, and it's very easy to look at high schools versus K through 8 and determine what schools rank the highest and maybe what part of town they're in. Amongst the top when it comes to K through 8 schools are going to be Tucson Unified School District schools, as well as Vail Unified School Districts. I believe out of the top 10, 7 or 8 of those spots belong to Vail schools, and that's, again, K through 8. And the other 2 or 3 spots are taken by Tucson Unified School Districts. Now, when it comes to high schools, that's where they're all kind of mixed up. You have Amphitheater, Catalina Foothills, you have Tucson, and you have Vail schools all mixed in the top 10 when it comes to top high schools in Tucson. No matter where you live, there are schools sprinkled all throughout, and it's pretty easy to get to and from the schools. Traffic isn't really too bad. There are some parts of town that get congested when it comes to school drop-off, but for the most part, they're easy commutes, and you don't really deal with much traffic when it comes to those drop-offs and pickups. Next is going to be shopping and really just things to do for the family. We are very much an outdoor family. We love what Tucson has to offer, and there's plenty of things to do outside. At our old house on the southeast, we had a lot of trails, a lot of biking trails. We had shooting ranges. There was an airport there, kind of a smaller private one called Ryan Airfield, where you could watch planes take off and land. Throughout the day, especially during the weekends, you hear all the dirt bikes and the side-by-sides hitting the desert and just having fun out there. And there's plenty of trails to accommodate that. Now that we moved to the southeast side of town, again, we still have plenty of trails. There's lots of road biking, lots of mountain biking. There is a very large parcel or piece of land known as, I want to say, Fantasy Island, that is home to an extensive system of mountain biking trails. And on any given day, you can see all the cars lined on the street with all their bike racks open because they're all out in the desert hitting these trails. The other draw to the east side are just going to be the Rincon Mountains as well as the Catalina Mountains to the north. There's a lot to do. There's a lot of horse riding here as well on the east side of town. Now, if you're looking at central or the north or the northwest, you're going to be closer to downtown. You're going to have plenty of shopping, plenty of restaurants, and plenty of things to do for the family when it comes to being in the actual city. Now, I've always considered Tucson to be the biggest, smallest little city I've ever been in. And what I mean by that specifically is that there's really no major attractions here. I think if you were to ask anyone what puts Tucson on the map, it's going to be the locally owned restaurants and businesses, the eateries, the bakeries, and just really the food. If you want major attractions and you want resorts or hotels or amusement parks and sports teams, then we are fortunate to only be 2 hours south of Phoenix and Scottsdale, where the Cardinals and the Diamondbacks play. I myself am a Rams fan, if you can't tell by the pictures on the wall, and it's nice to have the Cardinals in their league so that way we can go up there and watch the Rams play. We're not too big of a baseball fan, or family rather, so we have yet to go there, but it's a very easy commute and there's a lot to do in the Phoenix, Scottsdale area. Ultimately, we have loved living off base. We haven't had any problems with crime. That's not to say it's a crime-free city. And that takes me into the other, probably most popular question that I see asked on the Facebook groups here in Tucson. And that is, what are the safest and most unsafe neighborhoods? Now, as easy as a question as that might be, because I am a licensed agent and I have ethics and rules and regulations to play by, I cannot answer that question for you. That would be steering you into neighborhoods based off my opinion, and I can't tell you, oh, this neighborhood's good, go there, or this neighborhood's bad, don't go there. What I have to be is the source to the source, so I can point you in the right direction when it comes to finding information and data on certain neighborhoods or Tucson as a whole. That way you and your family can do the research and ultimately pick what neighborhood best fits you based off your needs and wants. Really, this comes down to if it might be safe for me, it might not be considered safe to you, and vice versa. So we don't want to throw our opinions in there or be subjective when it comes to neighborhoods. We need to be the source to the source, and you as the consumer need to do your research to figure out where you want to be and where you don't want to be. Now, I know if you're here, you've made it pretty far through the video, but one of the best things I can link to you and send to you is the links in the description for the Davis-Monthan specific Facebook groups. In these groups, there's always families asking questions, offering services, or providing advice when it comes to making the move to Tucson. If I were you, I'd encourage you to get in there early, start asking questions, or really use that search feature to ask your question in the search function and see if other families have already asked and answered those questions that you might have. I know for us, since we're not directly on the base, so we're kind of disconnected from that military base feel or community, it's always been nice to have that Facebook group or Facebook groups to reach out to or reference to see what's going on and what's happening in the military community here in Tucson. Again, check the description below for those links, join, and I'm sure you'll find a lot of good information that applies to you. Now, with all that being said, I know I've talked a lot about living off base, and there's a lot of wonderful places to live. You can live in the Southwest where you have a nice open natural desert. You can live in Corona de Tucson where you are definitely disconnected from the city. You have some peace and quiet about you. You have some beautiful mountain ranges, and you get some slightly cooler weather. To the north and the northwest, you're going to get a lot of hilly terrain, great views, great sunsets, and some very lush green neighborhoods. To the northeast and the east side, you're going to have a lot more flat land. You're going to have horse properties. You're going to have some space in between you and neighbors, and it's just a pleasant area to be. Now, none of this is a knock on living on base. And again, I've lived on base our entire military career except for here at Davis-Monthan, where we chose to make our first time purchase. We have since moved to another house, but if we had to move on base, and we won't be, then I wouldn't really be upset. I haven't seen or read anything on the Facebook groups that really are a big knock against on-base housing. Much like any government housing or military-based housing, you're going to have the same old problems. Houses are a little old, a little creaky. The roof might spring a leak every now and then, and maintenance might not be the quickest to get to your home. Aside from the common issues that we see in government housing, again, I've never really seen any bad complaints about the housing as a whole. I know that the base is pretty centrally located in Tucson, so if you do need to exit the base and go to Target or Walmart or Home Depot or any other store you need, it's really only a short commute from the gate to where you need to go. Davis-Monthan is, by its footprint, a pretty large base, but the actual area for housing and families, the commissary, the BX or PX, and the gas station and the CDC and schools, they're actually pretty centrally located, and you don't have to drive far at all to get to where you need to go on base. Now, I told you for a while we made the commute from the southwest to the base, and I drove through the housing developments plenty of times to get to Borman Elementary School on Davis-Monthan, and it was always pleasant. Nothing too crazy popped off. The traffic wasn't bad, and it was a very easy commute. So I can imagine living on base, it'd be very easy to walk your kid or bike with your kid to school. I will tell you, after being here for 5 years, we absolutely love Tucson. We love Vail, and we actually plan on, well, we have retired here, and we are going to stay here. We have no plans of moving, and we love it. My wife and I both come from pretty big cities, so we've experienced a lot. We've lived in Germany, Texas, California, and we've traveled the world. And after all that being said and done, again, Tucson is our home. If you have plans to make the move here, or you're possibly coming up on orders, or maybe you already are on orders to come here, I'd be happy to help. Tucson, even though small, there's a lot of good pockets. Sahuarita, again, another great mention for where families live, has a lot to offer. So Tucson is very diverse. There's a lot of neighborhoods to pick from. I know the rental market is pretty tough right now, but again, home buying might be in your cards if you've learned that renting is just way over budget. I'm Mason Martinez here in Tucson, and if you are serious about buying or selling, or again, you're on orders here, I'd be happy to help. Give me a call or shoot me a message, and I'd love to chat more. Thank you for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. It helps a ton, especially as I'm trying to help military families make the move, and I will see you on the next video.